All right. I hope everyone had a happy new year. Well, sorry, I messed with my charger. Um, we're going to start reading record 16 of We. Um, and I think we'll go through record 20, 19, 20, something like that. Um, I uh, everything on my end has been good. If you want the video of my podcast, go to tommysalmons.com. That would lead you to my Substack and you will have the video available. Otherwise, if you like the audio, you can continue to listen on Libsyn or at the libertarianinstitute.org. Don't forget Scott Horton Academy is up and running. So go to Scott Horton Academy to check out all the lessons that he's putting out. I know he's got some new ones in the works, and they'll be coming out soon for Scott Horton Academy. So go check that out. And we will get started here after I get a drink of water. As you know, I'm still kind of congested and but we're going to just keep trucking along. If I can suffer through it, so can you. So, record 16, Yellow, a two-dimensional shadow, an incurable soul. I have not written for several days. I don't know how many. All my days are alike. All are of one color, yellow, like dry, overheated sand. Not a patch of shade, not a drop of water, only an infinity of yellow sand. I cannot live without her, but she, since she disappeared that day so mysteriously in the ancient house, since that time I have seen her only once during the hour for the walk. 2, 3, 4 days ago, I do not remember exactly. All my days are alike. She only passed swiftly by and for a second filled up my yellow, empty world with her, arm in arm, reaching not higher than her shoulder, were the double curved S and the thin, papery doctor. And a fourth person, whose fingers only I remember well. They streamed out, those fingers, from the sleeve of the uniform, like a bundle of rays, uncommonly thin, white, long. I 330 raised her head and waved to me. Then she bent toward the one with the ray-like fingers over the head of S. I overheard the word integral. All four turned around to look at me, and then they disappeared in the bluish gray sea, and my road was once more dry and yellow. That same evening, she had a pink check on me. I stood before the switchboard, and with hatred and tenderness, I implored it to click and soon show the number I-330. I would rush out into the hall at every sound of the elevator. The door of the ladder would open heavily. Pale, tall, blonde, and dark, they would come out of the elevator, and here and there curtains were falling. But she was not there. She did not come. And it is quite possible that now, at this minute, as I write these lines, at 22 o'clock exactly, with her eyes closed, she is pressing her shoulder against somebody else in the same way. And in the same way, she may be asking someone, "Do you love me?" Whom? Who is he? That one with ray-like fingers, or that thick-lipped sprinkling R or S? S. Why is it that I have heard his steps splashing behind me as though in a ditch all these days? Why has he been following me all these days like a shadow? Ahead of me, to my side, behind me, a grayish blue, two-dimensional shadow. People cross it, people step on it, but it remains nearby, attached to me by unseen ties. Perhaps that tie is I-330. I do not know, or perhaps they, the guardians, I mean, already know that I. If someone should tell you your shadow sees you all the time, would you understand? All at once, peculiar sensations arise in you. Your arms seem to belong to someone else. They are in the way. That is how I feel. Very frequently now, I notice how absurdly I wave my hands without any rhythm. I have an irresistible desire to glance behind me, but I am unable to do so. My neck might as well be forged of iron. I flee, I run faster and faster, and even with my back, I feel that shadow following me as fast as I can run. And there is no place to hide myself, no place. At length, I reach my room, alone at last. But here I find another thing, the telephone. I pick up the receiver. Yes, I 330, please. And again, I hear a light noise through the receiver. Someone step in the hall there, passing the door of her room, and silence. I drop the receiver. I cannot bear it any longer, and I run to see her. This happened yesterday. I ran there, and for a whole hour, from 16 to 17, I wandered near the house in which she lives. Numbers were passing by in rows. Thousands of feet were beating like the time like a behemoth with a million legs passing by. I was alone, thrown out by a storm on an uninhabited island, and my eyes were seeking and seeking among the grayish blue waves. There soon, I thought, will appear from somewhere the sharp, mocking angles of the brows lifted to the temples, and the dark window eyes, and there behind them a flaming fireplace in someone's shadow. And I will rush straight in behind those windows and say to her, Thou, yes, thou without fail, thou knowest I cannot live without thee any longer. Then why? But silence reigned. Suddenly I heard the silence. Suddenly I heard the musical tower silenced, and I understood. It was after 17 already. Everyone had already left. I was alone. It was too late to return home. Around me, a desert made of glass and bathed with yellow sunshine. I saw, as if in water, the reflection of the walls and the glass smoothness of the street. Sparkling walls hanging upside down. Myself also upside down, hanging absurdly in the glass. I must go at once, this very second, to the medical bureau, or else, or perhaps this would be best, to remain here, to wait quietly until they see me and come and take me into the operation department and put an end to everything at once, redeem everything. A slight rustle, and the double curved S was before me. Without looking, I felt his two gray steel drill eyes bore quickly into me. I plucked up all my strength to show a smile and to say, I had to say something. I must go to the medical bureau. Who is detaining you? What are you standing here for? I was silent, absurdly hanging upside down. Follow me, said S. austerely. I followed obediently, waving my unnecessary foreign arms. I could not raise my eyes. I walked through a strange world, turned upside down, where the people had their feet pasted to the ceilings, and where engines stood with their bases upward, and where still lower the sky merged in the heavy glass of the pavement. I remember what pained me most was the fact that looking at the world for the last time in my life, I should see it upside down rather than in its natural state. But I could not raise my eyes. We stopped. Steps, one step, and I should see the figures of the doctor in their white aprons and the enormous dumbbell. With force, with some sort of inner twist, I succeeded at last in tearing my eyes away from the glass beneath my feet, and I noticed the golden letters, Medical Bureau. Why did he bring me here rather than to the operation department? Why did he spare me? About this, I did not even think at the moment. I made all the steps in one jump, firmly closed the door behind me, and took a very deep breath, as if I had not breathed since morning, as if my heart had not beaten for the same length of time, as if only now I started to breathe and only now a sluice opened in my chest. Inside there were two of them, one a short specimen with heavy legs, his eyes like the horns of a bull tossing the patients up, the other extremely thin with lips like sparkling scissors, a nose like a blade. It was the same man who, I ran to him as to a dear friend, straight over close to the blade, and muttered something about insomnia, dreams, shadows, yellow sand. The scissors the scissor's lips sparkled and smiled. Yes, it is too bad. Apparently a soul has formed in you. A soul, that strange ancient word that was forgotten long ago. Is it very dangerous? I shuddered. Incurable was the cut of the scissors. But more specifically, what is it? Somehow I cannot imagine. You see, how shall I put it? Are you a mathematician? Yes. Then you see, imagine a plane, let us say this mirror. You and I are on its surface. You see? There we are, squinting our eyes to protect ourselves from the sunlight. Or here is the bluish electric spark in that tube. There, the shadow of that arrow that just passed. All this is on the surface, is momentary only. Now imagine this very same surface softened by a flame so that nothing can glide over it any longer. So everything will instead penetrate into that mirror world which excites such curiosity in children. I assure you, children are not so foolish as we think they are. The surface becomes a volume, a body, a world. And inside the mirror, within you, there is the sunshine and the whirlwind caused by the aero propeller. And your trembling lips and someone else's lips also. You see, the cold mirror reflects, throws out while this one absorbs. It keeps forever a trace of everything that touches it. Once you saw an imperceptible wrinkle on someone's face, and this wrinkle is forever preserved within you. You may happen to hear in the silence a drop of water falling, and you will hear it forever. Yes, yes, that is it. I grasped his hand. I could hear drops of water dripping in the silence from the faucet of a washstand, and I knew at once it was forever. But tell me, please, why suddenly? Suddenly a soul? There was none, yet suddenly. Why is it that no one has it, yet I pressed the thin hand. I was afraid to loosen the safety belt. Why? Well, why don't we grow feathers or wings, but have only shoulder blades, bases for wings? We have arrows. Wings would only be in the way. Wings are needed in order to fly, but we don't need to fly anywhere. We have arrived at the terminus. We have found what we wanted. Is that not so? I nodded vaguely. He glanced at me and laughed, a scalpel-like metallic laugh. The other doctor overheard us and stamped out of his room on his heavy legs. He picked up the thin doctor with his horn eyes, then picked me up. What is the matter? A soul? You say a soul? Oh, damn it. We may soon retrogress even to the cholera epidemics. I told you, he tossed the thin one on the horns. I told you the only thing to do is to operate on them all, wholesale. Simply extirpate the center for fancy. Only surgery can help here. Only surgery. He put on a pair of enormous x ray spectacles and remained thus for a long while, looking into my skull, through the bones into my brain, and making notes. Very, very curious. Listen. He looked firmly into my eyes. When you consent to have me perform an extirpation on you, it would be invaluable to the United States. It might help us prevent an epidemic. If you have no special reasons, of course. Some long time ago, I should probably have said without hesitation, I am willing. But now I was silent. I caught the I caught the profile of the thin doctor. I implored him. You see, he said at last, number D503 is building the integral, and I am sure the operation would interfere. Ah, grumbled the other, and stamped back into the room. We remained alone. The paper like hand was put lightly and caressingly upon mine. The profile like face came nearer, and he said in a very low voice, I shall tell you a secret. You are not the only one. My colleague is right when he speaks of an epidemic. Try to remember, haven't you noticed yourself someone with something similar, very similar, identical? He looked at me closely. What was he alluding to? To whom? Is it possible? Listen, I jumped up from my seat, but he had already changed the subject in a loud metallic tone. As for the insomnia and dreams you complain of, I advise you to walk a great deal. Tomorrow morning you must begin taking long walks, say as far as the ancient house. Again, he pierced me with his eyes, and he smiled thinly. It seemed to me that I was enveloped in the tender tissue of that smile. A word, a letter, a name, the only name, or was it only my imagination? I waited impatiently while he wrote a certificate of illness for today and tomorrow. Once more, I gently and firmly pressed his hand. Then I ran out. My heart now feels light and swift like an arrow. It carries me higher and higher. I know joy will come tomorrow. What joy? Record 17. Through glass, I died, the corridor. I am puzzled. Yesterday, at the very moment when I thought everything was untangled and that all the X's were at last found, new unknowns appeared in my equation. The origin of the coordinates of the whole story is, of course, the ancient house. From this center, the axes of all the X's, Y's, and Z's radiate, and recently they have entered into the formation of my whole life. I walked along the X axis, Avenue 59, toward the center. The whirlwind of yesterday still raged within me, houses and people upside down, my own hands torturingly foreign to me. Glimmering scissors, the sharp sound of drops dripping from the faucet. All this existed once. All these things were revolving wildly, tearing my flesh, rotating wildly beneath the molten surface. There where the soul is located. In order to follow the instructions of the doctor, I chose the road that followed not the hypotenuse, but the two legs of a triangle. Soon I reached the road, running along the green wall. From beyond the wall, from the infinite ocean of green, There arose toward me an immense wave of roots, branches, flowers, leaves. It rose higher and higher. It seemed as though it would splash over me, and that from a man, from the finest and most precise mechanism which I am, I would be transformed into. But fortunately, there was the green wall between me and that wild green sea. Oh, how great and divinely limiting is the wisdom of the walls and bars. This green wall is, I think, the greatest invention ever conceived. Man ceased to be a wild animal the day he built the first wall. Man ceased to be a wild man only on the day when the green wall was completed, when by this wall we isolated our machine like perfect world from the irrational, ugly world of trees, birds, and beasts. The blunt snout of some unknown beast was to be seen dimly through the glass of the wall. Its yellow eyes kept repeating the same thought, which remained incomprehensible to me. We looked into each other's eyes for a long while. Eyes are shafts which lead from the superficial world into a world which is beneath the surface. A thought awoke in me. What if that yellow eyed one, sitting there on that absurd, dirty heap of leaves, is happier than I in his life, which cannot be calculated in figures? I waved my hand. The yellow eyes twinkled, moved back, and disappeared in the foliage. What a pitiful being! How absurd the idea that he might be happier. Happier than I, he may be, but I am an exception, am I not? I am sick. I noticed that I was approaching the dark red walls of the ancient house, and I saw the grown together lips of the old woman. I ran to her as fast as I could. Is she here? The grown together lips opened slowly. Who is she? Who? I 330, of course. You remember we came together, she and I, in an arrow the other day. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Ray wrinkles around the lips, artful rays radiating from the eyes. They were making their way deeper and deeper into me. Well, she is here, all right. Came in a while ago. Here, I noticed at the feet of the old woman a bush of silver bitter wormwood. The court of the ancient house, being a part of the museum, is carefully kept in its prehistoric state. A branch of the bush touched the old woman. She caressed that branch. Upon her knee lay stripes of sunshine. For a second, I, the sun, the old woman, the wormwood, those yellow eyes, all seemed to be one. We were firmly united by common veins, and one common blood, boisterous, magnificent blood, was running through those veins. I am ashamed now to write down all this, but I promise to be frank to the end of these records. Yes, I bent over and kissed that soft, grown together mouth of the old woman. She wiped it with her hand and laughed. Running, I passed through the familiar, half dark, echoing rooms, and for some reason I ran straight to the bedroom. When I had reached the door, a thought flashed. And if she is in there, not alone? I stopped and listened, but all I heard was the tick tock of my heart, not within me, but somewhere near, outside me. I entered, the large bed untouched, a mirror, another mirror, in the door of the cupboard, and in the keyhole an ancient key upon an ancient ring. No one was there. I called softly, I 330, are you here? And then, in a still lower voice, with closed eyes, holding my breath in a voice as though I were kneeling before her, I, dear, silence. Only the water was dripping fast into the white basin of the washstand. I cannot now explain why, but I disliked that sound. I turned the faucet hard and went out. She was not there. So much was clear. She must be in another apartment. I ran down a wide, somber stairway, pulled one door, another, a third locked. Every room was locked save that of our apartment, and she was not there. I went back again to the same apartment without knowing why. I walked slowly with difficulty. My shoe soles suddenly became as heavy as cast iron. I remember distinctly my thought. It is a mistake that the force of gravity is a constant, consequently, all my formula. Suddenly, an explosion. A door slammed down below. Someone stamped quickly over the flagstones. I became light footed again, extremely light. I dashed to the railing to bend over, and in one word, one exclamation expressed everything. You! I became cold. Below in the square shadow of the window frame, flapping its pink wing ears, the head of S passed by. Like lightning, I saw only the naked conclusion. Without any premises, I don't recall any premises even now. The conclusion, he must not see me here. And on the tips of my toes, pressing myself against the wall, I sneaked upstairs into the unlocked apartment. I stopped for a second at the door. He was stamping upward here. If only the door. I prayed to the door, but it was a wooden one. It squeaked, it squealed. Like a wind, something red passed my eyes, something green, and the yellow Buddha. In front of the mirror door of the cupboard, my pale face. My ears still following those steps, my lips. Now he was already passing the green and yellow. Now he was passing Buddha. Now at the door sill of the bedroom. I grasped the key of the cupboard. The ring oscillated. This oscillation reminded me of something. Again, a conclusion, a naked conclusion without premises. A conclusion, or to be more exact, a fragment of one. Now I 330 is. I brusquely opened the cupboard and, when inside in the darkness, shut the door firmly. One step. The floor shook under my feet. Slowly and softly, I floated somewhere downward. My eyes were dimmed. I died. Later, when I sat down to describe all these adventures, I saw it in my memory and consulted some books. And now I understand, of course. I was in a state of temporary death. This state was known to the ancients, but as far as I am informed, it is unknown to us. I have no conception of how long I was dead, probably not longer than 5 or 10 seconds. But after a while, I arose from the dead and opened my eyes. It was dark, but I felt I was falling down, down, down. I stretched out my hand to attach myself to something, but the rough wall scratched my fingers. It was running away from me, upward. I felt blood on my fingers. It was clear that all this was not merely a play of my sick imagination. But what was it? What? I heard my own frequent trembling breaths. I am not ashamed to confess this. It was all unexpected and incomprehensible. A minute, two, three passed. I was still going down. Then a soft bump. The thing that had been falling away from under my feet was motionless. I found in the darkness a knob and turned it. A door opened. There was a dim light. I now noticed behind me a square platform traveling upward. I tried to run back to it, but it was too late. I am cut off here. I thought, where? Here might be I did not know. Where here might be I did not know. Sorry. I got twisted. A corridor, a heavy silence. The small lamps on the vaulted ceiling resembled an endless twinkling dotted line. The corridor was similar to the tube of our underground railways, but it was much narrower and made not of our glass, but of some other very ancient material. For a moment, I thought of the underground caves where they say many tried to save themselves during the 200 Years' War. There was nothing to do but to walk ahead. I walked, I think, for about 20 minutes. I turned to the right. The corridor became wider, the small lamps brighter. There was a dim droning somewhere. Was it a machine or voices? I did not know. I stood before a heavy, opaque door from behind which came the noise. I knocked. Then I knocked again louder. Now there was silence behind the door. Something clanked. The door opened slowly and heavily. I don't know which of us was the more dumbfounded. The thin, blade-like doctor stood before me. You here. His scissors opened and remained open, and I, as if I did not know a human word, stood silent, merely stared, without comprehending that he was talking to me. He must have told me to leave, for with his thin paper stomach, he slowly pressed me to the side, to the more brightly lighted end of the corridor, and poked me in the back. Beg your pardon. I thought that she, I 330, but behind me. Stay where you are, said the doctor brusquely, and he disappeared. At last she was nearby. Here, and what did it matter where here was? I saw the familiar saffron yellow silk, the smile bite, the eyes with their curtains drawn. My lips quivered, so did my hands and knees, and I had a most stupid thought. Vibrations make sounds. Shivering must make a sound. Why then don't I hear it? Her eyes opened for me widely. I entered into them. I could not any longer. Where have you been? Why? I was unable to tear my eyes away from her for a second, and I talked as if in a delirium, fast and incoherently, or perhaps I only thought without speaking out. A shadow behind me. I died, and from the cupboard, because that doctor of yours speaks with his scissors, I have a soul, incurable, and I must walk. An incurable soul? My poor boy, I 330 laughed. She covered me with the sparkles of her laughter. My delirium left me. Everywhere around her, little laughs were sparkling. How good it was. The doctor reappeared from around the turn. The wonderful, magnificent, thinnest doctor. Well, he was already beside her. Oh, nothing, nothing. I shall tell you later. He got here by accident. Tell them that I shall be back in about a quarter of an hour. The doctor slid around the corner. She lingered. The door closed with a heavy thud, then slowly, very slowly. piercing my heart with a sharp, sweet needle. I-330 pressed against me with her shoulder, and then with her arm, with her whole body, and we walked away as if fused into one. I do not remember now where we turned into darkness. In the darkness, we walked up some endless stairway in silence. I did not see, but I knew. I knew that she walked as I did, with closed eyes, blind, her head thrown a little backward, biting her lips and listening to the music, that is to say, to my almost audible tremor. I returned to consciousness in one of the innumerable nooks in the courtyard of the ancient house. There was a fence of earth with naked stone ribs and yellow teeth of walls half fallen to pieces. She opened her eyes and said, "Day after tomorrow at 16." She was gone. Did all this really happen? I do not know. I shall learn day after tomorrow. One real sign remains. On my right hand, the skin has been rubbed from the tips of three fingers. But today, on the integral, the second builder assured me that he saw me touch the polishing wheel with those very same fingers. Perhaps I did. It is quite probable. I don't know. I don't know anything. Record 18. Debris of logic, wounds, and plaster. Never again. Last night, as soon as I had gone to bed, I fell momentarily to the bottom of the ocean of sleep like an overloaded ship that has been wrecked. The heavy mass of wavy green water enveloped me. Then slowly I floated from the bottom upward, and somewhere in the middle of that course I opened my eyes, my room. The morning was still green and motionless. A fragment of sunshine coming from the mirror on my closet door shone into my eyes. This fragment did not permit me to sleep, being thus an obstacle in the way of fulfilling exactly the rules of the tables, which prescribe so many hours of sleep. I should have opened the closet, but I felt as though I were in a spider web, and cobweb covered my eyes. I had no power to sit up. Yet I got up and opened the closet door. Suddenly, there behind that door, making her way through the mass of garments that hung there, was I-330. I have become so accustomed of late to most improbable things that, as far as I remember, I was not even surprised. I did not even ask a question. I jumped into the closet, slammed the mirror door behind me, and breathlessly, brusquely, blindly, avidly, I clung to her. I remember clearly, even now, through the narrow crack of the door, a sharp sun ray, like lightning, broke into the darkness and played on the floor and walls of the closet. And a little higher, the cruel ray blade fell upon the naked neck of I-330. And this, for some reason, seemed to me so terrible that I could not bear it. And I screamed, and again I opened my eyes. My room. The morning was still green and motionless. On the door of my closet was a fragment of the sunshine. I was in bed. A dream? Yet my heart was still wildly beating, quivering, and twitching. There was a dull pain in the tips of my fingers and in my knees. This undoubtedly did happen, and now I am no longer able to distinguish what is dream from what is actuality. Irrational numbers grow through my solid, habitual, tridimensional life, and instead of firm, polished surfaces, there is something shaggy and rough. I waited long for the bell to ring. I was lying, thinking, untangling a very strange logical chain. In our superficial life, every formula, every equation corresponds to a curve or a solid. We have never seen any curve or solid corresponding to my square root of -1. The horrifying part of the situation is that there exist such curves or solids. Unseen by us, they do exist. They must, inevitably, for in mathematics, as on a screen, strange, sharp shadows appear before us. One must remember that mathematics, like death, never makes mistakes, never plays tricks. If we are unable to see those irrational curves or solids, it means only that they inevitably possess a whole immense world somewhere beneath the surface of our life. I jumped up without waiting for the walking bell and began to pace up and down the room. My mathematics, the only firm and immovable island of my shaken life, this too was torn from its anchor and was floating, whirling. Then it means that absurd thing, the soul, is as real as my unit, as my boots, although I do not see them since they are behind the door of the closet. If boots are not a sickness, why should the soul be one? I saw it, but I could not find a way of the logical confusion. It looked to me like that strange and sad debris beyond the green wall. My debris of logic, too, is filled with extraordinary, incomprehensible, wordless, but speaking beings. It occurred to me for a moment that through some strange thick glass I saw it. I saw it at once infinitely large and infinitely small, scorpion-like, with hidden but ever perceptible sting. I saw the square root of -1. Perhaps it was nothing else but my soul, which, like the legendary scorpion of the ancients, was voluntarily stinging itself. The bell, the day began. All I saw and felt neither died nor disappeared. It merely became covered with daylight, as our visible world does not die or disappear at the end of the day, but merely becomes covered with the darkness of night. My head was filled with a light, a thin haze. Through that haze, I perceived the long glass tables and the globe like heads busy chewing, slowly, silently, in unison. At a distance, through the haze, the metronome was slowly beating its tick tock. And to the accompaniment of this customary and caressing music, I joined with the others in counting automatically to 50. 50 is the number of the chewing movements required by the law of the state for every piece of food. And automatically, then, keeping time, I went downstairs and put my name down in the book for the outgoing numbers, as everyone did. But I felt I lived separately from everybody. I lived by myself, separated by a soft wall which absorbed noises. Beyond that wall, there was my own world. Here a thought occurred to me. If that world is only my own, why should I tell about it in these records? Why should I recount all these absurd dreams about closets, endless corridors? With great sorrow, I noticed that instead of a correct and strictly mathematical poem in honor of the United States, I am writing a fantastic novel. Oh, if only it were a novel and not my actual life, full of x's square, roots of minus one, and downfalls. Yet all may be for the best. Probably you, my unknown readers, are children still as compared with us. We are brought up by the United States. Consequently, we have reached the highest summits attainable by man. And you, being children, may swallow without crying all the bitter things I am to give you only if they be coated with the syrup of adventures. Give me 1 second. I'm going to with some water. Ugh. H2O. All right. The same evening, are you familiar with the following sensation? You are in an arrow and you dash upward along a blue spiral line. The window is open and the wind rushes past your face whistling. There is no earth. The earth is forgotten. The earth is as far from you as Venus, Saturn, or Jupiter. That is how I live now. A hurricane wind beats into my face. I forget the earth, forget rosy, dear 090. Yet the earth does exist, and sooner or later I must plane down to that earth. Only I close my eyes to avoid seeing the date at which the name 090 is written on my tables. This evening, the distant earth reminded me of itself. In order to fulfill the recommendation of the doctor, I desire sincerely, most sincerely, I desire to be cured. Excuse me. I wandered for 2 hours and 8 minutes over the straight lines of the deserted avenues. Everybody was in the auditoriums in accordance with the table. Only I cut off from the rest. I was alone. Strictly speaking, it was a very unnatural situation. Imagine a finger cut off from the whole, from the hand, a separate human finger, somewhat hunched, running over the glass sidewalk. I was such a finger. What seemed most strange and unnatural was that the finger had no desire to be with its hand, with its fellows. I want either to be alone or with her, to transfuse my whole being into hers through a contact with her shoulder or through her interwoven fingers. I came home as the sun was setting. The pink dust of evening was covering the glass of the walls, the golden peak of the accumulating tower, the voices and smiles of the numbers. Isn't it strange the passing rays of the evening sun fall to the earth at the same angle as the awakening rays of the morning? Yet they make everything seem so different. The pink tinge is different. At sunset it is so quiet, somewhat melancholy. At sunrise it is resounding, boisterous. When I entered the hall downstairs, I saw you, the controller. She took a letter from the heaps of envelopes covered with pink dust and handed it to me. I repeat, she is a very respectable woman, and I am sure she has only the very best feelings towards me. Yet every time I see those cheeks hanging down, which look like the gills of a fish, holding out her dry hand with the letter U sighed. But that sigh only very slightly moved in me the curtains which separate me from the rest of the world. I was completely engrossed by the envelope which trembled in my hand. I had no doubt that it was a letter from I 330. At that moment, I heard another sigh, such a deliberate one, underscored with two lines, that I raised my eyes from the envelope and saw a tender, cloudy smile coming from between the gills, through the bashful blinds of lowered eyes. And then, you poor, poor dear, a sigh underscored with three lines, and a glance at the letter, an imperceptible glance. What was in the letter she naturally knew, ex officio. No, really? Why? No, no, dear. I know better than you. For a long time I have watched you, and I see that you need someone with years of experience of life to accompany you. I felt all pasted around by her smile. It was like a plaster upon the wounds which were to be inflicted upon me by the letter I held in my hand. Finally, through the bashful blinds of her eyes, she said in a very low voice, I shall think about it, dear. I shall think it over, and be sure that if I feel myself strong enough, great well-doer, is it possible that that is my lot? Is it possible that she means to say that she? My eyes were dimmed and filled with thousands of sinusoids. The letter was trembling. I went near the light to the wall. There the light of the sun was going down. From the sun, the dark, sad pink dust was falling thicker and thicker, covering the floor, my hands, the letter. I opened the envelope and found the signature as fast as I could. The first wound, it was not I-330. It was O-90. And another wound. In the right-hand corner, a slovenly splash a blot. I cannot bear blots. It matters little whether they are made by ink or by, well, it doesn't matter by what. Heretofore, such a blot would have had only a disagreeable effect, disagreeable to the eyes. But now, why did that small gray blot seem like a cloud and seem so spread about me a leaden, bluish darkness? Or was it again the soul at work? Here is a transcript of the letter. You know, or perhaps you don't. I cannot write well. Little it matters. Now you know that without you there is for me not a single day, a single morning, a single spring, for R is only. Well, that is of no importance to you. At any rate, I am very grateful to him, for without him alone all these days, I don't know what would. During these last few days and nights, I have lived through 10 years or perhaps 20 years. My rooms seem to me not square but round. I walk around without end, round after round, always the same thing, not a door to escape through. I cannot live without you because I love you, and I cannot be with you anymore because I love you, because I see and I understand that you need no one now, no one in the world save that other. And you must realize that it is precisely because I love you that I need another 2 or 3 days in order to paste together the fragments of myself and thus restore at last something similar to the O-90 of old. Then I shall go myself, and I myself shall state that I take your name from my list, and this will be better for you. You must feel happy now. I shall never again. Goodbye, O. Never again. Yes, that is better. She is right. But why then? Why then? Record 19, The Infinitesimal of the Third Order. From under the forehead, over the railing. I love this freaking book. I hadn't read it in years. I just love the way this he used language to describe things. It makes like such dramatic prose. It's very inspiring uh, in my own demented kind of way, I guess. There, in the strange corridor lighted by the dotted line of dim little electric lamps, or no, later, when we had already reached one of the nooks in the courtyard of the ancient house, she had said, day after tomorrow, that day after tomorrow is today. And everything seems to have wings and to fly. The day flies, and our integral too already has wings. We finished placing the motor and tried it out today without switching it in. What magnificent, powerful salvos. To me, each of them sounded like a salute in honor of her, the only one in honor of today. At the time of the first explosion, about a dozen loafing numbers from the dock stood near the main tube, and nothing was left of them save a few crumbs and a little soot. With pride, I now write that this occurrence did not disturb the rhythm of our work for even a second. Not a man shrank. We in our lathes continued our rectilinear or curved motions with the same sparkling and polished precision as before, as if nothing had happened. As a matter of fact, what did happen? A dozen numbers represent scarcely 100 millionth part of the United States. For practical consideration, that is but an infinitesimal of the third order. Pity, a result of arithmetical ignorance, was known to the ancients. To us, it seems absurd. It also seems droll to me that yesterday I was thinking, even relating in these pages, about a gray blot. All that was only the softening of the surface, which is normally as hard as diamond, like our walls. There is an ancient saying, shooting beans at a stone wall. 16 o'clock. I did not go for the supplementary walk. Who knows, she might come now, when the sun is so noisily bright. I am almost the only one in this room. Through the walls full of sunshine, I see for a distance to the right and to the left and below strings of other rooms, repeating each other as if in a mirror, hanging in the air and empty. Only on the bluish stairways striped by the golden ink of the sun, a thin gray shadow is seen rising. Already I hear steps and I see through the door, and I feel a smile pasted to my face like a plaster. But it passed to another stairway and down. The click of the switchboard. I threw myself to that little white slit and an unfamiliar male number. A consonant means a male number. The elevator groaned and stopped. A big, slovenly, slanting forehead stood before me, and the eyes. They impressed me strangely. It seemed as if the man talked with his eyes, which were deep under the forehead. Here is a letter from her for you, from under the awning of that forehead. She asked that everything, as requested in the letter, without fail. This too, from under the forehead, from under the excuse me, awning, and he turned, looked about. No, there is nobody. Nobody. Quickly, the letter. He put the letter in my hand and went out without a word. A pink check fell out of the envelope. It was her check, her tender perfume. I felt like running to catch up with that wonderful under the forehead one. A tiny note followed the check from the envelope. 3 lines. The check, lower the curtains without fail, as if I were actually with you. It is necessary that they should think that I am very, very sorry. I tore the note into small bits. A glance at the mirror revealed my distorted, broken eyebrows. I took the check and was ready to do with it as I had done with the note. She asked that everything, as requested in the letter, without fail. My arms weakened and the hands loosened. The check was back on the table. She is stronger than I, stronger than I. It seemed as if I were going to act as she wished. Besides, however, it is a long time before evening. The check remained on the table. In the mirror, my distorted, broken eyebrows. Oh, why did I not have a doctor's certificate for today? I should like to go and walk without end around the green wall, and then to fall on my bed to the bottom of. Yet I had to go to the auditorium number 13, and I should have to get hold of myself so as to bear up for 2 hours. 2 hours without motion, at a time when I wanted to scream and stamp my feet. The lecture was on. It was very strange to hear from the sparkling tube of the phono lecturer not the usual metallic voice, but a soft, velvety, mossy one. It was as a woman's voice, and I seemed to have a vision of the woman, a little hook like old woman, like the one at the ancient house. The ancient house. Suddenly, from within me, a powerful fountain of. I had to use all my strength to control myself, so as to not fill the auditorium with screams. The soft, mossy words were piercing me, yet only empty words about children and child production reached my ear. I was like a photograph plate. I was like a photographic plate, excuse me. Everything was making its imprint with a strange, senseless precision on me. The golden scythe, which was nothing more than the reflection of light from the loudspeaker of the lecture apparatus. Under the loudspeaker, a child, a living illustration. It was leaning toward the loudspeaker, a fold of its infinitesimal unif in its mouth. Its little fist clenched firmly, its thumb squeezed into the fist, a light, fluffy pleat of skin at the wrist. Like a photographic plate, I was taking in the impression of all this. Now I saw how its naked leg hung over the edge of the platform. The pink fan of its finger waved in the air. 1 minute more, 1 second, and the child would be on the floor. A female scream, a wave of translucent wings, her unif on the platform. She caught the child. Her lips clung to the fluffy pleat of the baby's wrist. She moved the child to the middle of the table and left the platform. The imprints were registering me, a pink crescent of a mouth, the horns downward, eyes like small blue saucers filled with liquid. It was 090. And as if reading consequential formula, I suddenly felt the necessity, the naturalness of the insignificant occurrence. She sat down behind me, somewhat to my left. I looked back. She quietly removed her gaze from the table and the child and looked straight into me. Within again, she, I, the table on the platform, 3 points. And through those 3 points, lines were drawn, a projection of some as yet unforeseen events. Later, I went home through the green, dusky street, which seemed many eyed because of the electric lights. I heard myself tick tocking like a clock, and the hands of that clock seemed to be about to pass a figure. I was going to do something, something that would cut off every avenue of retreat. She wants somebody whom I do not know to think that she is with me. I want her. What do I care what she wants? I do not want to be alone behind the curtains, and that is all there is to it. From behind came sounds of a familiar gait, like splashing in a ditch. I did not need to look back. I knew it was S. He would follow me to the very door, probably. Then he would stay below on the sidewalk, and he would try to drill upward into my room with his boring eyes until the curtains would fall, concealing something criminal. Was he my guardian angel? No, my decision was made. When I came into my room and turned on the light, I could not believe my eyes. Oh, 90 stood at my table, or to be more exact, she was hanging like a creased empty dress. She seemed to have no tensity, no spring beneath the dress. Her arms and legs were springless. Her voice was hanging and springless. About my letter, did you receive it? Yes. I must know your answer. I must today. I shrugged my shoulders. I enjoyed looking into her blue eyes, which were filled with tears as if she were the guilty one. I lingered over my answer. With pleasure, I pricked her. Answer? Well, you are right, undoubtedly, in everything. Then she tried to cover the minute tremor with a smile, but it did not escape me. Well, all right. I shall leave you at once. Yet she remained drooping over the table, drooping eyelids, drooping arms and legs. The pink check of the other was still on the table. I quickly opened this manuscript, We, and with its pages I covered the check, trying to hide it from myself rather than from O. See here, I am still busy writing, already 101 pages. Something quite unexpected comes out in this writing, in a voice, in a shadow of voices. And do you remember how the other day on the seventh page, and it dropped? The tiny blue saucers filled to the borders, silently and rapidly. The tears ran down her cheeks, and suddenly, like the dropping of the tears, rushing forth words. I cannot. I shall leave you in a moment. I shall never again, and I don't care. Only I must have a child from you. Give me a child, and I will leave. I will. I saw she was trembling all over beneath her uniform, and I felt I too would soon. Would. I put my hands behind my back and smiled. What? You desire to go under the machine of the well doer? Like a stream, her words ran over the dam. I don't care. I shall feel it for a while within me. I want to see only once the little fold of skin here at the wrist, like that one on the table in the auditorium, only for one day. 3 points, she, I, and a little fist with a fluffy fold of skin there on the table. Excuse me. I remember how once when I was a child, they took me up on the accumulating tower. At the very top, I bent over the glass railing of an opening in the tower. Below, people seemed like dots. My heart contracted sweetly. What if on that occasion I only clenched my hands around the railing? Now I jumped over. So you desire, being perfectly aware that her eyes were closed as if the sun were beating straight into her face, a wet, shining smile. Yes, yes, I want it. Quickly, I took out the pink check of the other from under the manuscript, and down I went to the controller on duty. O 90 caught my hand, screamed out something, but what it was I understood only later when I returned. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, hands firmly clasped about the knees. Is it her check? What does it matter? Well, it is hers. Yes. Something cracked. It must have been the springs of the bed, for O 90 made a slight motion only. She remained sitting, her hands upon her knees. Well, quick. I roughly pressed her hand. A red spot was left on her wrist. Tomorrow it will become purple. Where the fluffy infantile fold. I turned the switch. My thoughts went out with the light, darkness, a spark, and I had jumped over the railing, down. Record 20. Discharge, the material of an idea, the zero rock. Oh, yeah. Let me get a drink of water. Sorry about my congestion. I'm trying to hold it back. Discharge is the best word for it. Now I see that it was actually like an electric discharge. The pulse of my last few days had been becoming drier and drier, more and more rapid, more intense. The opposite poles had been drawing nearer and nearer, and already I could hear the dry crackling, 1 millimeter more, and an explosion, then silence. Within me, there is quiet now, and emptiness like that of a house after everybody has left, when one lies ill, all alone, and hears so clearly the distinct metallic tick tock of thoughts. Perhaps that discharge cured me at last of my torturing soul. Again, I am like all of us. At least at this moment, as I write, I can see, as it were, without any pain in my mental eye, how O90 is brought to the steps of the cube, or I see her in the gas bell. And if there is in the operation department, she should give my name. I do not care. Piously and gratefully, I would kiss the punishing hand of the well doer at the last moment. I have this right with regard to the United States to receive my punishment. I shall not give up this right. No number ought or dares to refuse this one personal and therefore most precious privilege. Quietly, metallically, distinctly do the thoughts rap in the head. An invisible arrow carries me into the blue height of my beloved abstractions. And I see how there in the height, in the purest rarefied air, my judgment about the only right bursts with a crack like a pneumatic tire. I see clearly that only an atavism, the absurd superstition of the ancients, gives me this idea of right. There are ideas of molded clay and ideas molded of gold or of our precious glass. In order to know the material of which an idea is made, one needs only to let fall upon it a drop of strong acid. One of these acids was known to the ancients under the name of reductio ad absurdum. This was the name for it, I think, but they were afraid of this poison. They preferred to believe that they saw heaven, even though it was a toy made of clay, rather than confess to themselves that it was only a blue nothing. We, on the other hand, glory to the well doer, we are adults and we have no need of toys. Now, if we put a drop of acid on the idea of right, even the ancients, the most mature of them, knew that the source of right was might. Right is a function of might. Here we have our scale. On the one side, an ounce, and on the other side, a ton. On one side, I, on the other, are we, the United States. Is it not clear to assume that I may have any right as far as the state is concerned? Is like assuming that an ounce may equilibrate equilibrate a ton in a scale. Hence the natural distribution, tons, rights, grams, duties. And the natural road from the nothingness to greatness is to forget that one is a gram and to feel that one is 1 millionth of a ton. You ripe bodied, bright Venerians, you sooty, blacksmith like Uranians. I almost hear your protests in this silence, but only think everything that is great is simple. Remember, only the four rules of arithmetic are unshakable and eternal, and only that mortality will be unshakable and eternal, which is built upon those four rules. This is the superior wisdom. This is the summit of that pyramid around which people, red with sweat, fought and battled for centuries trying to crawl up. Looking from the summit down to the bottom where something is still left swarming like worms, from the summit all that is left over in us from the ancients seems alike. Alike are the unlawful coming motherhood of O90, a murder and the insanity of that number who dared to throw verses into the face of the United States, and alike is the judgment for them, premature death. This is that divine justice of which those stone housed ancients dreamed, lit by the naive pink rays of the dawn of history. Their God punished sacrilege as a capital crime. You Uranians, morose and as black as the ancient Spaniards, who were wise in knowing so well how to burn at the stake, you are silent. I think you agree with me. But I hear you, pink Venerians, saying something about tortures, executions, return to barbarism. My dear Venerians, I pity you. You are incapable of philosophical, mathematical thinking. Human history moves upward in circles like an arrow. The circles are at times golden, sometimes they are bloody, but all have 360 degrees. They go from 0 degree to 10 degree to 20 degree to 200 degree to 360 degree, and then again 0 degree. Yes, we have returned to zero, but for a mathematically working mind, it is obvious that this zero is different. It is a perfectly new zero. We started from zero to the right and came to zero on the left. Hence, instead of plus zero, we are at minus zero. Do you understand? This zero appears to me now as a silent, immense, narrow rock, sharp as a blade. In cruel darkness, holding our breath, we set sail from the black night side of the zero rock. For centuries, we, Columbuses, floated and floated. We made the circuit of the whole world, and at last, hurrah, salute. We climbed up the masts. Before us now was a new side of the zero rock, hitherto unknown, bathed in polar light of the United States. A blue mast covered with rainbow sparkles, suns, 100 suns, a million rainbows. What does it matter if we are separated from the other black side of the zero rock only by the thickness of a blade? A knife is the most solid, the most immortal, the most inspired invention of man. The knife served on the guillotine. The knife is the universal tool for cutting knots. The way of paradoxes follows its sharp edge, the only way becoming to a fearless mind. All right, there we go. Record 16 through 20. Thanks for hanging in there with me and dealing with all my coughing and slobber knocking and all that good jazz, stumbling and finally getting to the end of this section. So we will pick up record 21 next week, and y'all have a good week. I will talk to y'all later. I'm trying to figure out what that does. Okay. Anyway, we are going to stop the recording.